Well, you have finally got here. You are listening to the Erskine Music Podcast. Here, by popular demand, we discuss life, culture, Christ, and of course, music. These half-hour broadcasts are perfect for a commute, coffee time, chat, or any other gap in your schedule where you want to put great content. So without further ado, let's join the conversation today, already in progress.
Jesus. Revolution movie review today. Man, I love it when I can start a show out by just saying Jesus. You know, there's something about that name, Jesus, that makes all the difference in all the world, in all of eternity, in every place. It's Jesus Revolution Day. We're going to be talking about that today. Oh, yeah. Big Head is giving me a special note. Big Head has decided he's going to come back to the show today. He done got all high and mighty, all high and falutin now that he done flown first class and gone to a Shane and Shane concert. Okay, Big Head, what do you want to say? Okay, that's a good point. Good point. Okay, point well accepted. Big Head is telling me we need to probably limit the number of times that we say revolution. He said, you're a black man in America, so don't be screaming revolution too loud. All right. Okay, I got it. So let's start the show over again. Take two. All right. You can do that on a live stream. You can't restart your show on a live stream. You've already started. All right. So take two. Here we go. All right. So welcome to the Erskine Music Show today, where we'll be talking about Jesus Resolution. It sounds like the other word, but Jesus Resolution is a movie that just came out. Well, that's not really a movie, but you guys know that I'm going to be doing a movie review today on that classic movie. And you'll see in the comment section, if you look at that, how many guys actually look at the comment section? If you look at the comment section, you'll see why I gave that movie a 46 out of 50 on my scale. And my scale is really the only scale that matters. That's why you're watching the Erskine Music Show today. On that movie review, gave it a really high marks, and I'm going to tell you why here in just a few minutes. The Erskine Music Show. Let's do this today, baby. All right, so really want to get into this today, and I want to welcome to the show, obviously, our special guests who are always here, the Dolphins. They are here today, and also Big Head, as I said before, has come back to the show, all high and mighty now, telling me what I need to do at the introduction of my show, telling me how I need to curb my blackness. That's not going to happen. Oh, yeah, it's not Black History Month anymore. All right, I'm going to curb my blackness. So anyway, we're going to be talking about the movie Jesus Resolution today. I don't know if you really can get in trouble I'm looking at Big Head. I don't know if you really can get in trouble for saying that a bunch of times, but I'm not going to say the last part of that just because, you know, I'm trying to eventually get this show monetized. I got over 900 subscribers. We about to do some work on this show. What y'all Yes, you're about to be making money. I'll come see you guys out there and do concerts and shows still, but I'm going to be up in this thing monetizing this baby. All right. Before we get to our devotion today, just want to really quickly say thank you guys so much for all of your support on this show. I'm going to get the tags out of the way because I'm going to be using some source material here on the show, as I like to do. Remember, the comments are in the comment section. The comment section is turned on today, so you guys can jump in here. If you've seen the movie before, if you haven't, there's going to be probably no spoilers, but it is a true story based on the events of the life of Greg Laurie. If you know who that is, and that's great. If you don't know who that is, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Played by Kelsey Grammer, and it's got an all-star cast there. Jonathan Rumi, man, great movie. We'll get to that in just a few moments. We'll have our devotion in just a few moments, but let me go ahead and give you guys a couple of tags today. Good morning to all the folks who are out there, and yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let's rock it like this. I want to first of all say that we have permission to use some of the source material here, whether it be the trailer or some of the commentary that we're going to be using today under the guise of fair use. I'll throw that up there for just a second, then we'll get it off. All right. Very good. Very good. And remember to subscribe to the channel. That's what's making this thing grow. And that's what eventually is making this so much fun, is that when you guys join in on this, tell your friends about it, subscribe to the channel, don't miss a single episode. That's what makes this so much fun. And as I said before, the movie Jesus Revolution. I'm gonna say Revolution today. Jesus Revolution, the movie, so you actually know what I'm talking about. Jesus Resolution makes no sense. Big head. Jesus Resolution makes no sense. They won't even know what I'm talking about if I keep saying resolution. Jesus Rebutution. All right. Anyway, you guys know that has coincided with revival or outpourings that have been sweeping across our country. And is this the perfect time? Is this the perfect season for such a movie? Is this the thing that God is doing? We're going to try to answer that question today. So your comments are welcome. All right, let's get to the movie trailers, because some of you guys may be wondering, what is Jesus Revolution? Maybe you've been somewhere, maybe you've been out of the country, maybe you have not been paying attention to the box office numbers of what's coming in related to this movie, and it just caught you off guard. You're watching it and you're like, there is a Christian movie that's doing well at the box office. It is smashing records at the box office, and people are starting to take note of the fact that there's a whole segment of people out there that would like to have different entertainment than having LGBT, transgender, all the different agenda type things that are out there. They want to see other programming besides that, and are tuning in to see movies like Jesus Revolution. All right. So with that in mind, let's share a little bit of the movie trailer. It's about 2 minutes in duration, just to get us into it. And then we'll start to talk through what I would sense as some critical areas, at least for me, when I'm doing a movie review. And you'll get a chance to see that rubric. I've actually put it in the notes today, and I'll talk through that today. And so here's Jesus Revolution trailer official.
Hey, Square.
I am not a square.
I think we should invite Greg this weekend.
What's this weekend?
The mountain is high. California!
These people are hippies, rebels against old-fashioned authority.
I think these kids need help.
What they need is a bath.
You're passing judgment on people you know nothing about. Maybe that's why your church is so empty.
When God walks in here, brings me a hippie, I'll ask him what it's all about, because I do not understand.
This house has a very good vibe.
All right, so that's Jesus Revolution, the official movie trailer. And I love some of the comments that are coming in. Sometimes folks have to leave early on this show, and so I hope if you can go back and watch the full review here, you guys get a chance to see how I address some of the questions related to the impact. I want to go down story, plot, writing, and acting. And that's kind of the first category. The second thing is I want to go through technical cinematography. Thirdly, I'm going to go through the gospel, clarity, and transformation. Fourth, I'm going to go through impact. And then eventually family friendliness, kind of using a category from Plugged In. And so I think some of the comments that are coming in would fit well as I relate to number 4, the impact in this movie, number 3, gospel clarity, and then family. But you're going to have to wait for my comments on that. That's how us YouTubers keep you involved.
Well, that certainly gives a sense of why people enjoy this show. Very engaging, very heartfelt. We will return to the conversation in a few moments, but first, let's thank our sponsors and you for all your awesome support. Moody Radio's Dawn and Steve Morning Show, Life Action Ministries, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and Holt International. Thanks so much to our partners who make such a difference. All right, let's get back to the show. This is where it gets good.
But let me get to storyline and plot here. Let's see who can help us today with storyline and plot today. Yeah. All right, so this is based on a true story. You have the 1960s, 1970s, what is known as the Jesus Revolution that is taking place in America. It is an awakening that happens during the time where you have hippies, free love movement that is out there, and it brings together a lot of those cultural elements and tells the story from that authentic vantage point. And so the afros, the bell bottoms, the dress, all the different things, and the reason why it's PG-13 and maybe in some cases could even challenge that is because it actually doesn't do a deep dive, so there's no, but it does have some images that could be a little bit disturbing. I will say that that authentically place it within the PCP and LSD culture in the free love movement of the 1960s and 1970s. I wasn't there, but I think from all that I've read and all that I've seen, they were able to weave in sort of the anti-war sentiment, the anti-authoritarian sentiment, trying to weave in the disenfranchisement with established norms that take place there. And you can all read about those things. Those are of historical notes, and even theologians talk about that in relationship to church history and what theology does during that time. And so we'll get to that a little bit later. But as it relates to the story, a very authentic story that I think was told extremely well when it comes to the plot. And I will say, by extension, also the writing that was involved in this. Exquisite job of plot and writing. You can have all of those elements. And I think if you're a student of history, you've seen all of those elements before. But the ability to put those elements together in a cohesive story that we wouldn't necessarily call a plot was exquisitely done. Let me look in the camera and say it was exquisitely done. Let me ask Big Head what he thought about that. Big Head, your thoughts on that? He thought it was exquisitely done. That's amazing how we're in such agreement today, Big Head. All right, so the plot and the writing were exquisite. There were very few moments, if any, as I watched this film that I was thinking to myself, okay, they need to get on. Like the pace of this is not keeping up with the storyline of this. And that's a difficult thing to do in a movie, is to have engagement where you have enough sensory perception that you understand what's going on there and you can say what you don't need to say by the visual imagery and some of the things that we'll talk about in this review, but you also are moving the storyline along. And so along with story, when I do a movie review and when I watch a movie, like I thought Devotion, the movie, I did a movie review with Jason on Devotion. It was good. It just had some moments where it lagged. Like the story was true, based on a true story. And then I'm talking about Devotion now. Devotion was true, it was based on a true story, but it had some moments where it began to lag. I didn't think this movie had very many, if any, moments where it began to lag. And so the plot, the writing. All right, let me talk about this category under the heading of story. The acting was exquisite. Most everyone who pays attention to American media knows Kelsey Grammer. Him playing the part of Chuck Smith, the pastor of Calvary Chapel, he did a fantastic job. And this is what I always watch for in films. And I don't know if this is you guys, but this is me when I watch a film. I'm always asking myself, does the minister in the movie portray what actual ministers, the persona of an actual minister? Now, we can talk about theology and some of the theological differences that are there. And there definitely will be some, because I'm not necessarily in the Calvary Chapel movement. I would not be described as somebody in the Calvary Chapel movement. However, when the minister is portrayed on screen, there's been many times that I've watched a movie and the minister has been weak. They've been docile. They've been ineffective. It's almost as though the minister has been put in a category of being somebody that's wimpy, that's whiny. And you could have had elements in this movie because Chuck Smith is going through a difficult time when he begins to let these hippies come in, and there's some friction in his church, and the people who are there, who are established, who have, some permanency in the church, are beginning to get uncomfortable with that. And that could have made the minister come off as looking wimpy, indecisive. And I thought Kelsey Grammer pulled off the tension in this movie of actually being a spiritual authority while still being kind and compassionate. But you can tell, and I would say this, he also pulled off in the 60s and the 70s this sort of fundamental makeup that you have of some ministers who are extremely gruff. And that carries on today. I think the tendrils of that are found in, like the Bob Jones types of folks who are just like, this is very rigid and it's King James only and it's this and it's not anything other. And, so they've had like folks from that very fundamental ilk have had a hard time adjusting to modernism. Sometimes they've rejected modernism. I think you see aspects of this in the modern reform movement with, I'm not going to name names, but guys who are extremely critical of anything that they don't agree with or anything that is not their particular style. Or I would say this to any of the reform folks who are watching, folks who are quote unquote solid gospel teachers that really have this hard edge, which is strange because the doctrines of grace, get it? Doctrines of grace. But they have this hard edge because they see people operating in giftings that they don't have. And it's either a jealousy or it's either a lack of understanding. I'll let you guys work that out. But Kelsey Grammer does a good job of having this, I'm not going to pay attention to these hippies. If I ever meet one, I'll talk to him. He does actually do a great job, I think, in the acting of pulling that character off. All right. Jonathan Rumi, who we know is Jesus in The Chosen. And I'll do a whole series on Chosen. In fact, I'm supposed to do a discussion with one of my friends who has some serious concerns about The Chosen. I don't have so many concerns about The Chosen because The Chosen is not discipling me. Actually, this Bible is discipling me. It's amazing. It's amazing when you read this. You can begin to embrace other media that is out there and say, well, yes or no, and accept art for the sake of art and not have to worry about whether that art is tainting you. But anyway, I digress. But having said that, Jonathan Rumi, who plays the character of Lonnie Frisbee, extremely complicated character, I think does a fantastic job of pulling off the tensions that are found there with this really charismatic, I think is an understatement, broken in some ways, confused, like all of those things that are the history, if you could pack it in, of a Lonnie Frisbee. Jonathan Rumi, say what you want to about The Chosen, but that man can act. So he did a fantastic job there. The main characters that are following the storyline of Greg Laurie, who are following the storyline of he and his wife, they do an exquisite job of acting as well. And I'll talk about that in some of the impact a little bit later. All right. That was category number 1. And this is the official movie review. This is the only official movie review that you need. All right. So is Jesus Revolution the best movie for our time? Now I continue on in this movie review because this is our top story. All right, number 2, technical aspects in cinematography. This will be a short category because the technical aspects in cinematography, visuals that I gave this movie was a 10. So acting, writing, plot, 10. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. On the second category, technical cinematography and visuals, 10 out of 10. This was not something that was shot on an iPhone with one camera angle. There is some serious camera angles, imagery, vision, line of sight, the way that they portray certain scenes where the characters are just sort of confused. They've got scenes in the rain that are just epic scenes. They really brought the cinematography home in this movie, and I think a profound way. And it doesn't hurt that you're in Southern California, coastline, beaches, Pirates Cove, just all right, California. I don't know if, I don't wish earthquakes upon anybody, but can there be a more beautiful scenery than what you found in this movie? It was incredible. You had a lot to work with in California, and it's a true story. And so you're following the storylines, you're following the coastline, as it were. You're following the Jesus revolution and this Jesus movement that is taking place in California and then begins moving across the country. It's incredible and it's exquisite. And so the visuals, I won't spend a lot of time on that. The visuals were a 10. Cinematography, I don't think if you watch this movie from the standpoint of knowing where we have come from, and I'm thankful for, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, Christian movies are bad. I'm not that guy. because I appreciate movies like Flywheel. I appreciate, and we own Facing the Giants and movies like that. And for those of you, if there's anybody that's out there that was a part of my youth group, circa 20, let's see, that would have been 2010, 29, 2010, 2011. If there was anybody that was in my youth group, you know that we used to have movie nights and we would watch bad Christian movies, which they were pretty much all bad at that time. And we would just, it became comedy hour for us because we would watch the movie for the moral implication of the movie, but the movies were so bad that it became kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000. And so for those of you who are in my youth group, you guys know that I've been reviewing movies for a long time, and that those have always been something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. But the cinematography and visuals have not always been good. And some of the technical aspects of movies, Christian movies in particular, have not always been good. And so for the writing and acting to get a 10 out of 10 on my scale, and for the cinematography to get a 10 out of 10 on my scale, that's something of significance. Let's get to some comments who are here. Kelly. This comment is obviously not from Kelly. This has got to be from my kids. I'm not even putting that on the screen. You guys be messing with me during my show. My kids have figured out that you can message dad on while he's on the show by putting it under the guise of my wife. All right. So I'm not putting that comment on the screen. Don't you guys have some homework that you're supposed to be doing? Anyway, let's go to category number 3. We're going to talk about gospel clarity. Where are we at? Why can I not find the button? I've been pressing it all show. All right. Gospel clarity in this movie. It's there. It's there. There is obviously some scenes where, and I don't want to be a movie spoiler, so I'm trying to touch this sensitively. You're not going to get overwhelmed with a sense of pound, 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 Jesus, 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 unless you trust Jesus. Like it's not gonna feel weighty in this movie. And that's one of the things that, as much as I love clarity in gospel presentation and force in gospel presentation and just the actual gospel and good news that's being presented, sometimes that can be an unnatural break in a movie where they're like, okay, we've got a lot of Christian investors who invested in this movie and they want us to give a gospel presentation. And so we're going to rip the storyline out for just a second and we're going to give a gospel presentation. Then we're going to jump back into our story. And sometimes, and I'm not going to mention some names, that feels a little disjointed. It feels disingenuous. It feels like, as much as we would use the term about other groups, so there's an agenda, it feels like, well, you just put the Christian agenda in this movie. But the gospel actually flows out of this movie quite naturally because you begin to see the transformation that's taking place in these hippies' lives. And I thought that was a very important aspect of this film, to be able to watch it and to see that there's no what feels like artificial story breaks, or there's no, and I know I've used the word agenda probably way too many times, but there's no Christian agenda in this that would break from the storyline to say, okay, now we got to satisfy the investors. And so let's throw this in here real quick and then let's get back to the story. That is the story. And so it's kind of easy to hit a home run when the fence is only 5 feet away and the ball is already on the bat. Like, it's going to be a home run. Like, the storyline is sharing the transformation of the gospel. And then the movie comes behind and shows the message of the gospel. And so for gospel clarity and transformation, I actually gave this a 9 out of 10. And we're going to get down into impact and family. And I guess this is a comment that I'll put on the screen now. This is good. I love it when people are objective here on this show and challenge. I welcome the challenge. I bring that smoke to the show. Most solid teachers will not agree with this movie or the pastors in it. I'm going to let that be there.
Well, that certainly gives a sense of why people enjoy this show. Very engaging, very heartfelt.
Got a writer's retreat that's coming up March 5th through the 7th, and I want all of you that can be a part of it to be a part of it, because it's going to be a tremendous and I think growing, encouraging, developing time of not just artist development, but also songwriting, recording. And I don't think there's anything like it. We've checked around. And for the price point that we're offering this, which is $500, there's nothing on planet Earth, because we've scoured, we've looked long and hard, we've looked far and wide. There's nothing on planet Earth with this kind of value and this kind of price point. So $500. Here's Lydia talking about it really quickly, and then we're about to get out of here.
Hey, if you're a Christian songwriter, there's a great opportunity coming up the weekend of May 5th through the 7th in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the Create Songwriter Retreat. It will be hosted by yours truly, as well as Erskine and Vitarte, and featuring keynote speaker David Delgado. We are going to be doing co-writes and collaborating with other writers. We're going to be talking about artist development and getting insight and personal advice for your music career. This is going to be amazing. We're going to be recording demos of the songs that we write in the studio together, and this is just so valuable. We need each other, we need community. So if you're looking for co-writers, for collaborators, for encouragement in your craft and in your career, check out the Create Songwriter Retreat coming up May 5th through the 7th in Nashville, Tennessee. You do not want to miss this, so apply today to get more information. Would love to see you there.
$500. $500. 5 C notes. You're following along. If you're a Regions Bank, you now know what a C note is. Because the first time I came in, I said, "Hey, can I get a few C notes?" And they were like, "Do what?" I was like, "You work at a bank. You know what a C note is?" And so we have an ongoing joke there. 5 C notes will get you access to this conference. Over $2,000 worth of value. It really is. We've looked around and we've priced other writers retreats of this kind, and there's nothing on planet Earth that is like this writers retreat. So if this is in your creative wheelhouse, you will definitely want to take advantage of that. The early bird special got in for $400, and so this is filling up even now, and there's limited space that's available. So I want to make sure that you guys got that announcement as soon as possible. Look,
different. All right, let's get back to the show. This is where it gets good.
God doesn't speak through private messages. I'm going to let that sit there for just a moment. With that in mind, I am not trying to fly the flag of Calvary Chapel by any stretch of the imagination. I think as a observer of history, in which I have to be because I didn't live during that time. I wasn't alive then. You see the effects of it. And let's start with this. Something happened to a lot of people who went into ministry, who became Bible believing, gospel teaching, gospel preaching pastors, which if you go back and see what it is that I said about the Asbury outpouring, so to speak, something happened, and we'll know in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, if people are saying, hey, during that Asbury situation, whatever it was, God, through his providence and through his care, through his concern, through his word, through the hope of the gospel, either transformed me or brought me to a place of recognizing with clarity what the call and mission upon my life was. If there are people who are giving that testimony 5, 10, 20 years down the road, then we can look back and we could say, although not everything of the Asbury outpouring was by the book, so to speak, God did do something through that. And I'm willing to sit back from a historical note from somebody who wasn't there and say, whether or not I agree with the theology of Calvary Chapel, certainly the vineyard movement that Lonnie Frisbee was a part of, and you guys can go and see third wave theology and some of those things. I would be on the opposite side of that, theologically speaking. All those things were an offspring and an outpouring from this awakening. There were also some solid Bible teachers that came from that. There were also some evangelists, missionaries, teachers, pastors, and people who were in all areas of Christian ministry that came out of this time where the Bible began to be in more prominence, and they show that in the movie. I wasn't there at Calvary Chapel, but it seems that people were actually paying attention to God's word. This is the word of God. There were several times where the Bible was held up and saying, we're not just going to come in here and just speak messages. We're going to be speaking from the word of God. Not to be a spoiler. Let's see how I don't spoil this. But there's a challenge in the movie in which, is this movement going to grow? And I think this is a good way to do it. Is this movement going to grow based on the personalities, or is this movement going to grow on the word of God? And I think that challenge is resoundingly met in a refreshing way in this movie. Now, were there characters and some jokers in this thing? Obviously. Lonnie Frisbee. Um, yeah, there's some deep things that are going on there. But gospel clarity and transformation, I gave it a 9 out of 10. So if you're keeping track, that's 39. Let's go to impact really quickly here. And the comment section is still turned on. And if anybody wants to respond to that I just said, you guys are welcome to respond to that. I love the comments coming in, and that makes the show a lot of fun. But I do want to go to the impact of the movie. How can you not find the button that you've been pressing the whole show? All right. Impact. Wow. I gave the impact of this movie a 10 out of 10. Excuse me. I'm trying to underrate this movie. I gave the impact of this movie a 10 out of 10. And here's what we do. Our family does movie night, and there's a list of movies that I want my kids to see and they will wrestle with. The last movie that we watched was Red Tails. It was Black History Month, and so we were watching Glory, Red Tails, a lot of movies that have to do with, sort of Black advancement in the United States. So Civil War. We're also looking at that from the Tuskegee experience. And what I'll do often in movies, whether it be those types of movies or anything else, is I will look at the impact of the movie in terms of the relationships that are there, in terms of themes that come from scripture that are found in the movie. Not every movie is going to have a Christian theme to it like Jesus Revolution does. But when we do movie reviews at our house, I like to talk to my kids, especially about what were the friendships like? What was family? What did family look like in this movie? What were some of the things that people um, you see them sacrificing for, thinking less of themselves to help other people? What were some of those storylines that were found in the movie? What were some of the characters that didn't demonstrate good character or good judgment? Or what were the characters that demonstrated wisdom in this movie? And so we do a lot of different things in the area of impact. That's really important, that not just Christian films, but every film that we watch, we talk about the impact of that. Like what comes out? What's the impact of this movie? We watch these graphic scenes of things that happen and decisions that people make, either good or bad, and we watch the implication of those decisions. And because of the drama and the cinema that's behind those, my kids will often say, "Man, that was a really bad decision, and I got that person killed. That was a really good decision." And so we talk about those things. So applying that same rubric to this film, let's talk about that in terms of relationships. Exquisite. The relationships in this movie of, and I won't spoil this, but you guys can go and check out Greg Laurie's relationship with his mom, Greg Laurie's relationship and plot twist related to his dad, Greg Laurie's relationship with this girl that begins to tell him about how Jesus is impacting her life, his relationship to the culture around him, just from the standpoint of Greg Laurie. Now, you think about that in terms of Lonnie Frisbee and the relationships that he has, marriage, some of the things that you begin to see, and refreshingly in this movie, and I really did appreciate this. I appreciate the fact that this movie is bringing home some of the real life, if you've been married for more than 5 minutes, some of the real life struggles that married people have were brought into this. And you think about the enormous growth that was taking place during the Jesus movement, and you look at the strain that puts on marriage and marriages, not just the pastor of the church, but also other marriages that are having to figure out, with all of this movement, all of this growth, all of this social upheaval that's taking place in society, how do the marriages hold together or not in this movie? How does this movie portray friendship? And in a culture where you've got all these hippies that are just, oh, these are outlandish, drug in need of rehab, sobriety, all the different issues that are faced in this movie, you get a chance to see friendship in this movie from the standpoint of, hey, I'm a believer. we don't do the same things. We're not even cut from the same cloth. And in some ways, there's not even a socioeconomic um, incentive for us to be around one another, to be able to take that in the form of relationship and put those all together. You're looking at this, and I love it when I see this island of misfit toys, this mishmash of people that you would go, there's no reason why these people should be together. They're not like one another. They don't have many things that would be in common from a socioeconomic standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, from an age and demographic standpoint. These people should not be together. And this movie answers the question in a very formative and I believe impactful way by giving the understanding that the reason why they're together is because Jesus has brought them together and Jesus is the center of those friendships and relationship. All right, that's incredible. But wait, there's more. There's always more on the show. What about the church? The church is seen in its glory and in its shame. And I did so appreciate that in this movie, that they didn't just sugarcoat it and say, you know what, we're going to satisfy our investors here. We're going to show this pristine picture of the church then and the church now. Big Head, can you get on the screen here? Yes, I'm calling you back to the office. Big Head, didn't you appreciate the fact that we're going to tell the truth about this? The church is not always the most friendly environment for visitors who come looking different than the status quo at the church. Can we say that was done well in this church, or in this movie, that the church is portrayed in its shame? And Big Head, I'm going to stop talking to you for just a second. I'm going to talk to them. It is a shame sometimes that the culture in the Western church, especially in places of affluence, and that would be practically every place in our Western world, can homogenize to a point where those that look different, those that don't speak the same way, those that don't have the same theological understanding — I'm talking to some of the folks who are watching this today — those who don't have the same theological understanding are not viewed as people to be discipled, are not viewed as people to be encouraged, as people to be helped, as people who need friendship, as people who need the example of Christ. I'm talking to somebody today who's watching this and who perhaps will watch this later on today. The church is not always a place where those types of things — I am not, nor will I ever be, a supporter or an advocate of the LGBTQ element of P, whatever designations they've come up with. They change the stinking thing every day. But God forbid that I would ever be the type of person that would stop having conversations with, stop demonstrating the love of Christ to people who are different than me. What a profound and impactful message. That's the negative side of things. And I said before, you see the church in its shame, but you also — gospel choir, warm up the pipes, gospel choir. But you also see the church in all of its glory. Hallelujah. Listen to me, Big Head. You know what I'm talking about on this thing. The church in all of its glory, bowing the knee, washing the feet — not that that's the third ordinance — washing the feet, being responsive, being receptive, being adaptive, being resolute to continue to preach the gospel, depending upon the power of God, working through differences, working through circumstances. You see the church in all of its glory in this movie, and you see the transformation of lives that begin to be encapsulated with none other than Jesus Christ, who is the author and perfecter of our faith. Just like Philippians chapter 1, verse 6 talks about, that he who began a good work in us will carry it into the day of completion, in the day of Christ Jesus. You see that in this movie. And for that, man, you get a horn and you get a gospel choir. So I gave it a 10. Wasn't that hard. I gave it a 10. All right, let's go to family, and I'll land the plane here. We're at about 45 minutes. I cannot get this show under 40 minutes anymore. Big Head, it's your fault. It's your fault. And Big Head says, I haven't been on the show this week. And that is true. You haven't been on the show this week. Dang it. I was going to blame it on you. All right. Maybe I have to blame it on me. Family. I gave it a 7 out of 10 for family. That's an important category. You hear this review and you're like, man, he's 10ing this thing up. 10, 10, 10, 9. Man, this thing is about to get an almost perfect score. Well, let's pause. Hang the heck on for just a second. Can't give it a high. It's kind of like the dunk contest, right? Like, it might have been a 50, but I can't give it a 50. Can I? You have that moment of hesitation. But anyway, family, I gave it a 7 out of 10 in this category. And if you're doing the math, that's a 46 out of 50. But I gave it a 7 out of 10 in this category because it is PG-13 for a reason. There are some graphic scenes that would be and should be uncomfortable to watch, laden in a very loose and tumultuous cultural expression in the 1960s. I don't think you should take kids who are under the age of 13 to this movie, but I'm not your dad. I'm not your mama. I'm not your daddy. You decide, mama and daddy, if you want to take your kids to this, but I would not say, in the wisdom of speaking to other youth pastors who are out there, this is not going to be your middle school. Don't do it. Kids are going to come. Don't do it. Maybe senior high, if you have a good relationship with the kids and a good relationship with their parents, they can be able to tolerate this. But this is not going to be for middle schoolers like that. And so because of that, I gave it a 7 out of 10, although it has some incredible family values and you get a chance to see the development of characters who are just sort of at odds. You get a chance to see broken families, of which many people are from. I'm from a broken family. I'll just be clear with you. I'm watching some of these scenes in the movie and I'm like, man, that's how my family was. Oh man, I didn't grow up knowing a lot of stuff about my dad. It wasn't until recent years that I actually started having a relationship with my dad. So, I mean, I can resonate with the whole broken family theme. So there's that in the movie. I gave it a 7 out of 10 there. That's a score 46 out of 50. And I don't think that they need to change the movie so that it becomes more family friendly. So I could give it a higher score there. I just thought that was just an aspect of the movie. It was well done. Families were seen in their brokenness. Families were seen in their redemption. Families were seen in their wholeness. Families were seen in their fragmentation in this movie. And it's just part of what the movie was. And so I gave it a 7 out of 10 out of family just because that's what I thought was appropriate for that, just to warn people in that area. And so that's 46 out of 50. You got to really bring the heat if you want to get a 46 out of 50 on my scale.
We have come to the end of this episode. Don't miss a final word from Erskine.
Hey guys, tell your friends about this show. And as always, I look forward to your interactions. Please contact us as you are able. We love to hear from you. Okay, friends, let's go and make a difference.